Hello everyone, welcome to today's lecture. In this lecture we are going to learn about application layer protocols, or which are the protocols that resides on the application layers. So let's start. So the application layer contains a variety of protocols that are commonly needed by users. One widely used application layer protocol is HTTP, which is a hypertext transfer protocol, with which we are all aware, which is the basis for the World Wide Web. Other application protocols are used for file transfer, electronic mails, and network news, etc. And that protocols are DNS, FTP, SMTP, and MIME, etc. So that are the multiple protocols that we will learn in this chapter. So before we'll start the protocols, let's understand what is the World Wide Web, or WWW. So WWW stands for the World Wide Web. World Wide Web is a collection of millions of fields stored on thousands of servers all over the world. I know we all are aware with this WWW. We can imagine the WWW as this is one big server and it contains millions of files. And if I want that files, we can access it from that server. This file represents documents, pictures, videos, sound, programs, interactive environments. All of the things that we can get through our browser, that all the things are stored in the WWW. A web page is an HTML document that is stored on the web server. A website is a collection of web pages belongs to a particular organization that is also stored in the WWW. A URL of this page share a common prefix, which is the address of the home page. Yes, suppose I want one website. So the first keyword is a www dot. Now the website name .com. Yes, suppose I want to open the Google, then it is a www.google.com. so each and every websites are stored on the World Wide Web server. That is why we can address our website's URL, or we can start our website URL with www from that shows the address or where our website is stored. So that is why the word www is written as a prefix. So if I write one HTML code for creating some page, then that page is called the HTML. Now I create a multiple pages that is dependent on each other. So by clicking on one URL of that page, I will redirect to other page. So that combined web pages is create one website. And if I want to open that website, the URL start with the www, and the page that will display is the home page of that website. So home page is the front door of the website. When a person or organization says my website is at www.facebook.com, the URL to which they refer is URL of the site's home pages. So if I open one new website at any time, the page that shown on your browser, that page is the home page. I know you all are aware with that content, so that is why that's why I quickly revise that things. The home page introduces the rest of the websites and provides a links that leads to other pages in the site. Yes, so home page has structure, and it contains many links. So by clicking on that links, we can redirect to the other pages of that website. So that is how the website is created, and all that website is stored on the WWW. So now we all know that all the contents are stored on the WWW server, and if I want that content, the first thing I need is a web browser. Without the web browser, I cannot request any content. So let's understand what is the web browser. All that concept is very familiar with all this concept is very familiar with us, so that is why I quickly revise that things. We all know what is a web browser. Yes, a web browser is a software or the application. Web browser is used to communicate with the web server on the internet, which enables it to download and display the web pages. Yes, we can request the content with using web browser. We can download the content with using the web browser. We can and the web pages is shown, or web pages, and the web pages is displayed with the help of web browser. Without the web browser we cannot do these things. So Chrome, Firefox, Opera, yes, all are the example of the web browsers. Web browsers interact with the web as well as computer operating system and with other programs. Internet Explorer is a default browser in a newly installed OS. Yes, you all know that if we purchase a new laptop, then the only installed web browser is Internet Explorer. If we install a new OS in our system, then the installed web browser is only a Internet Explorer. So some of the basics elements of the browsers, they are menu bar, toolbar, address or the location window, viewing window, status bar. We all are aware with these things. So this is the overview of web browser. The purpose of web browser is display of web pages which may either arrive over the internet. Yes, main thing, we request some content and that content is displayed over the web browser. So that is the main purpose of web browser. Web browser can use to view the files of any common web format that are stored on the user system. So we can use the web browser to view our file. Yes, if we store or if we save one web pages, then we can open it by using the web browser. There are different ways of opening the web pages. First is enter the URL into the address bar or the location box of the web browser. Click or press the enter, then we can redirect to that website or that web page. Select it from the list, that drop down from the address. Yes, we have used multiple website and now I want to open that same website, then I just click on that arrows, drop down arrow, and from that we can select the URL and that redirects also to that web page. Link it from another web page or link it from a mail message or the news group article. Yes, so if one page is already open and this page is already contain one link, we can, by clicking on that link, we can redirect it to that page. Or if we reading one news article and or we can read if we are reading one mail and it contains one link, so we can directly open that web page with using of that link. Yes, so that is how we can open the web page in the web browser. Yes. Next thing is web browser architecture. Each browser usually consists of three parts: controller, client programs, and interpreter. Yes, so as shown in the figure, this is a controller which is connected through the protocols. Next is the interpreters, which interprets different languages, and the third is a client program, which is client machine. So this is a simple architectures of the browser. The controller receives the input from the keyboard or the mouse and uses the client program to access the document. Yes, suppose I write something on the search box, so the input goes through the keyboard. So this is how we can request to the browser. After the document has been accessed, the controller uses one of the interpreter to display the documents on the screen. And suppose I request for one web page, the request goes to the server and then server reply to that web page. Yes, so that web page is displayed over this over the window screen, and that is done with the help of controller. Suppose I request for the HTML page, then the controller used is a HTML controller that interprets that web page into the HTML, then display to the browser. Suppose the content is in Java, then it interpret into the Java and display on the screen. Yes, so based on the requirement, the controller is used. The third is a client program, and the client program uses a protocol such as HTTP, FTP or SMTP to display that web pages that we'll learn in our later session. Just for here reference, just understand that each and every browser use the protocols. Yes, and using that protocols we can request the content, and this content is displayed over the browser. And the interpreter can be HTML or Java. As I said, that based on the requirement, the interpreter is work. So this is a basic architecture of browser. This is a very basic concept. So I hope now you are clear with that browser architecture. The next is how WWW is worked. Yes. So WWW uses a client-server interaction. Means it uses the client-server architecture that we have already learned in our previous lecture. So same WWW follow that client-server architecture. The browser acts as a client that uses the internet to contact a remote server for a copy of the requested page. Now client requests a web page from the web server via the internet, and server and that remote server replied a requested page to the clients. This is a broad explanation of how they are working. The server provides a copy of the page along with the additional information. The additional information a WWW server returns tells a browser two important things. It describes how to display the information, and it gives the URL for each selectable items on the page. Yes. So I request a page. Yes. Now server fetches the requested information from the server and send it to the browser. But before the display, it contains the two things. First is the display information, in which format the data will be displayed. So that format is also sent by the server, and next is a URL. So that two things is given by the server, and based on that format, the page is displayed to the client PC. So each URL uniquely identifies a page of information by giving the name of the reward computers, how URL encode the information. Yes. So if you notice the URL, then it contains many encrypted things. So that is written by the server. Now a web client called a web browser interprets a HTML language. So that interpretation is done by the HTML controller that we have learned in our web browser architecture. Yes. So now that information is interpreted via the HTML language document. Now it interprets a HTML language document and delivered from the web server. So it is a multimedia because the information it holds can be in the form of text, graphics, sounds and video. So that is why it is called a multimedia, because server can return anything. So the format is very important. Based on that format, the data is displayed. The information being retrieved can be information located anywhere in the world. The normal way to provide information on the World Wide Web is by writing the documents in the HTML. Yeah, so we request any information, so that request is not only from India. The server is also resides in our foreign countries, so that information is also retrieved from that server. Yes. So normal way to provide information on the World Wide Web is by writing the HTML documents. Normally that is written in the HTML format. Nowadays it can be written in many languages. So let's understand what is a HTML. So HTML stands for the Hypertext Markup Language, I you all are you all are aware with the HTML. I will quickly revise the HTML. HTML is a hypertext markup language. Is intended as a common medium for typing together information from widely different sources. HTML documents are in a plain text format that contains embedded HTML text. Documents can be created in any text editor. Yes, there are also many other tools including editors designed specifically to assist in creating HTML documents. To view an HTML document, the user needs a browser. So this is a static web document. To create a static HTML documents, we have to write multiple tags. In the tags we have to write the information, and by doing that thing we can create one simple plain we can create a simple static page. Yes, so the most basic element in the HTML document is a paragraph. The web browser flows all the content of the paragraph together from left to right. Yes, for that the tag is used is a p tag. So mostly the information that is we requested through the internet, that is given. Suppose I want to find what is a World Wide Web. So that question, the answer of that question is one written text, and that written text is written in the paragraph text. So this is the common structure of the HTML page that is a very common. So this is how the static HTML page is created. The elements in the documents are identified by stars and end tags. For example, title. If we open the title tag, we have to close the title tag. The header tag. There are the header tags. There are 6 levels of heading tags that are available: H1, H2, H3, up to H6. There is one BR tag for line break. There is one P tag for the paragraph. There are many tags are available in HTML, and by using the tags we can create a static pages. The advantages of the HTMLs are application development with short time. Web applications are easy to maintain and update, can easily access other companies' web database. Collecting information with the HTML is very easy. While the disadvantages is web pages cannot be locked. Yes, users have a free and open access to the HTML, and it provides a less security. So the disadvantage is a less security of static web HTML documents. The second one is a dynamic web documents. So the dynamic website or the dynamic web documents is a collection of dynamic web pages whose content changes dynamically. It accesses the content from a database or the content management system. Therefore, when you alter or update the content of the database, the content of the website is also altered or the updated. Yes, so data is stored in the database, and on the web page data comes from that database. So suppose there is a data of a person's information, and so one person's information is changed. So on the web page the content is also updated. If the static web page, we are just writing that information on that text, so we have to manually change that information. While in the dynamic web page, as a database change, that change is also done in our web page. So that is called the dynamic web documents. So a figure shows the processing of information in HTML. So a client or the user first request through the browser, then browser request to the server. Now server is connected with the database through the CGI script. Yes, so CGI script is a program that runs on the web server, and CGI defines the standard ways in which information may be passed to and from the browser and the server. So it provides them standard ways. So now server requests a data from the database based on the query. Database fetch the data and retrieve to their server. Now servers collect that data, and that data is sent to the browser. So that is how dynamic web documents is created, or that is how we can fetch the data. So these are the some steps of accessing the pages from the server, like user fill in the form sent back to the server, now handed to the CGI. CGI, as I said, it is just a standard scripting. So now CGI queries to the database. On the database, the query is applied and record is collected. Now CGI build that pages. Yes. So database give the data to the CGI, and CGI builds based on the data. CGI builds the web pages, and that pages is given to the server, and that server return that pages to the client. So this is how dynamic accessing of pages from server is done. So and the last thing that is important in our www is URL, means Uniform Resource Locator. The Uniform Resource Locator is a standard for specifying any kinds of information on the internet. URL has three parts: the protocol, the DNS name of the machine where the page is located, and the file name containing the page. So the protocols and DNS that we'll learn in our later session. The protocol is the client server program used to retrieve the documents. We all know what is protocol. That we have discussed in our first lecture. Host is a computer on which information is located, and the URL can optionally contain the port number of the server. File name gives where the information is located. So this is a URL. Suppose I create one website. So each and every website has their basic URL. So on the local host, it has a 127.0.0.1 colon some port number. So by using that URL, we can open that website. But once I hosted that website, then it has a unique URL like www.avc.com. So that is the URL of that website. So each and every website has their own unique URL. So that is why it is called the Uniform Resource Locators. We can uniquely identify that website or any resources over the internet. So simply if we write any URL, then that URL is converted into the IP that is done by the DNS, and based on that IP, the server, based on that IP is an address. So it can be accessed through that address on the server, and based on that address we can get the information. So this is how URL works. So that will clearly understand when we learn the DNS. So that is the concept of URL. Now let's understand how www work on the client side. When a user clicks on a link, the browser carries out a series of steps in order to fetch the page is pointed to. The browser determines the URL. The browser asks DNS for the IP address of that URL. Suppose the DNS replies 172.16.16.1. So DNS is responsible for converting that name into the IP. The browser makes a TCP connection to some port number. It sends a request asking for the file, for example home index.html. The server sends that file and TCP connection is released. The browser will display all the text in home/index.html or the home page of that URL and the web page of that website, and the browsers fetched and display all the images in this file. So this is how www is working on the client side. Next is the server side. The step that the server performs, like after it get the request. So first thing is first client initiate some connection, so it accept that connection. Now get the name of the file required, get the file, return the file to the client, and release the TCP connection. So this is the step that is followed in the followed via the server side. So that is how www is work on the server side. So that's it for the today's lecture. In our today's lecture, we have learned the working of www. So first we have learned what is a
www. So www is a collection of files that stores on the server. Next we have learned what is a web browser. Next we have learned the architecture of web browser. It contains controller, client programs and interpreters. Next we have learned what is a HTML. Types of HTML is a static HTML and dynamic HTML. And next we have learned URL. So URL contains mainly three parts, which is the protocol, DNS and file name. And at last we have learned how www is working over the client and the server side. So this is about today's lecture. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.